What's up, everyone? This is Dariusz Kalbarczyk, co-founder of MG Poland, JS Poland, AngularMaster.dev, and WorkshopFest.dev. Welcome back to Angular Master Podcast. Today, we've got a special guest from Warsaw, Poland, CTO at Cobiro. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Radzio. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How about you?
Everything is cool. Now is cool. The first question, do you have your favorite podcast?
Well, actually, yes. I really like your podcast. So thank you for
thank you
having
so
me
much.
here. Yeah, you're welcome. You do a great job here. But I also follow Angular Show from the international ones. And then I have also one which is sort of outside of Angular, and it's called Better Software Design. If I strongly recommend it for people who are really keen on domain-driven design and learning more about the architecture per se.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. What do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I'm a CTO at Cobiro. I've created a Polish office here in Warsaw, but we pretty much remote as well. So we have people from all around Poland, and not only, we also have people from Kenya. So
wow.
one of the Google developer experts, Wayne, is also part of our company. So generally, I'm doing, I'm having some focus time in the morning when I'm doing coding. And then after that, after lunch, I'm coaching and do some midterm and long-term planning with the teams.
Okay, so tell me more about your flagship product.
Yeah, so we have a website builder that has started about a year ago. That's the main thing. If you go to Cobiro.com, you will see everything is around the website builder. Website builder is pretty cool. It's really exciting projects that we've started. Is far the most advanced Angular project I've worked so far. So we're having a lot of cool stuff from very advanced architecture. We've started with CQRS. So I'm talking more technically, or do you also want to know, like, product-wise, what does it do?
Okay, I heard that you built a great team here in Warsaw. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to build a successful development team here in Poland, especially in Poland, especially in Warsaw.
Yeah. So it all started about more than 2 years ago when I moved from Denmark, where I used to live permanently, and I moved back to my home country, Poland, and I moved to Warsaw, and I started an office here. So I got a job and I started an office. And to build a successful team, you really want to focus on the values first, because I believe all the rest you can learn, right? So obviously you can learn also, things like professionalism and so on, but I found it a lot harder. So you want to hire for attitude first, right? So the very important thing is when you talk to the candidate who's willing to take the job, first of all, you gotta explain them why is it good to join your company. So you tell them, you need to understand what's the motivation behind it. So is it the money? Well, that's not always a good answer. Obviously, the money is important, but that shouldn't be the main factor. Then what you also want to know is, why do you actually code, right? What drives you to get better? What do you want to achieve? How do you see yourself in the future? And then you just want to facilitate that shift, right? So an idea is, if you want to build a successful team, you want to get people who you can trust. And in Cobiro, we have this analogy of Spartans. I'd rather have 300 Spartans than a horde of people who don't do anything, right? So we're really, really keen on getting the best talents out there, but it doesn't mean they are the most skilled. It means it's a mix of attitude, ability, skills, and dedication and motivation. So I believe this is the most important thing. And so far it's been working very good for us. It's because, people who work here and they work usually, some of them are with us from the beginning, 2 years already. And it's clearly a lot of time in IT, right? People tend to change jobs every 6 months, maybe 1 year, and so on. But a lot of those people are still with us until today, and I could see them grow from, being a mid-level developer to be like a principal. So it's really, really all about your attitude, because if you have that, if you're really driven to get better, you're gonna get that. No matter, it's just a question of time. So the really important thing is hire for attitude first, and then get people who you can trust. That's very important.
So at the end of the day, it was easy.
No, it's not easy at all. I mean, obviously, we reject about 90% of the candidates.
Okay.
So it's a lot. And I know, the market, right? I mean, everyone talks about the market. There is so many jobs. There is so many opportunities. And, maybe some foreign companies maybe even pay a little bit more money. But in general, if you have a right mindset, I don't think there is a lot of places, maybe not many. I could maybe count 1 or 2 in Poland where they also have the same mindset towards building things, because we're really strong on test-driven development, domain-driven design, architecture first. We're really strong on tests. We have 100% code coverage. We take it very seriously, and if you join Cobiro, you're gonna actually work with the smartest people you ever met. So that's really, really cool. We wanted to model it like Google does it. So, only hire really smart people. So yeah, it's not easy because, most of the people simply, they either not fit, or maybe, that's not the right time for them or whatever. But in general, it's not easy because you have to filter out a lot of people, and it's very challenging. You really have to put a lot of hours to interest someone in your company. And, just the fact that we are here talking about things is also helping a lot, because I believe we're pretty recognized. Like, people know my YouTube channel and so on. So it helps, but it doesn't do the job, right? You still have to go there, talk to people, review them, give them tasks. Then when they are already in your company, you have to take care of them, right? So you have to facilitate their growth, their professional and personal growth. So it's a lot of job. It's really a lot of job, but there is nothing better than seeing a guy, improve in front of your eyes and getting better. So that's very rewarding as well.
So what were biggest problem along the way?
Yeah, it's quite a few of them, but I think it depends on the time, because on the beginning, I would say the biggest problem was I just didn't have enough time, right? So I've been working a lot, many hours to connect things. And on the beginning, I had to learn stuff I haven't even done before, like legal stuff or whatever, like I was one-man army to, build this whole thing ground up. And then on the same time, being inspiring, answer a lot of questions. So multitasking, that was one of the biggest problems in the beginning. As we grew and we got more people, bigger problem was to actually build like the managerial structure in a company, to actually be able to delegate, you need to learn to give someone else the power to do great things, and that was also challenging. And then eventually, when the whole situation with Corona started, and people going remote first, and there's a lot of challenges. So we are no longer really an office first company, maybe, like all those
Exactly,
things, you have to adjust to it.
Yeah, exactly. The office first was it was normal, but not now.
Yeah, it's not now, but I think it's a benefit. So people often ask me, is like, should you actually allow people working from home? I would say yes. I mean, if you trust them, you hire them to work in your company, and then they actually perform and they do very good. And if they are better about working from home, it's also a case, then why not? I mean, it's a win-win situation. Exactly. Sometimes it's not a win-win situation. Sometimes they don't work so well at home. Then you have to facilitate them and help them to actually, get into the habit. I personally find out that I'm more effective working from home, but I'm less of a team player because of the communication barrier. So there is a trade-off that people have to be aware of. Just facilitate a little bit more online meetings and so on.
Yeah, always the communication is the biggest challenge here if we talk about remote working.
Yeah. But it's fun, I mean, the idea has always been a dream of mine. The rest, a lot of people that, technically you're just thinking globally now, right? Like maybe you don't need to be in the Warsaw or somewhere else. Maybe you want to move countryside or do whatever else. I think it can actually change the way we think about the cities as well. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, exactly. What are your goals in Cobiro now?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different things. So we have short-term goals and long-term goals, and I have my own personal goals. So in general, my personal goals would be to at the moment, like, to take care of the employees that are currently in the company, finish wrap up a year, and then move to the new year with much stronger technical vision. Which would involve things like NX, 100% of NX in all our products, remove all the legacy, move towards event-driven architecture everywhere. So there's a lot of things technically. And also personally, I would like to empower more people, share what we've learned here in Cobiro, do more open source. So there's a lot of things actually going on.
So you mentioned it this a little bit before, but what kind of people are you looking for?
Yeah, so the people so we have 3 different values, and those values are around things like business first, technological savvy, and professionalism. So really, I like the perfect match would be meeting all 3 of these, right? So when you build something, you want to be proactive, ask questions, think about your end users, think about the business first, and then think about the technology, because then the technology will be there for sure, and you're gonna eventually code it. But don't use technology as the most important goal. Use the business and the user experience first, and then use the technology to support that. That would be one of the things. So you got to be proactive, not just active, actually proactive, productive, and so on. Then when we go into the technology, you really want to be willing to learn about architecture, which is not very common on front end. A lot of people will think front end is just a UI layer for the backend, which is totally not true, at least not on the product that we do. Like the website builder, it's actually all running in your browser. So it's a lot more advanced than that. And then we have event sourcing. It's a lot of good stuff. Generally, you need to be able to learn that and apply it and try out your things. And it's okay to fail. That's totally fine. Then you just, get better, right? But just don't repeat the same mistakes all over again. And then there is a professionalism, like this is actually the hardest part I found here looking for people, is to get people feel ownership of what they do. Obviously, ownership is very easy when you actually achieve successes, but then be also accountable for what you do, right? So when you see an error or you see a bug, go and fix it. Don't wait for the ticket. Don't point to someone else. Like, be a good team player. Be professional around it. Just obviously let your product owner know that there is such a such case, but then go ahead and fix it straight up. Put it on a Slack channel. Have this ownership. It's not very tangible. You can't really count it, but you can clearly say who's really caring for what they do. And this is far most important thing for me, but also the hardest to find.
Yeah, that's well said. Okay, so how do you make sure that these people stay in your organization?
Yeah, so in Cobiro we have a meritocracy, which means we reward people based on what they bring to the company, not their status or their past or I don't know, color of the skin. That doesn't matter at all. We're blind to those. We really care about what do you bring to the table? And then if you bring a lot to the table, you get promoted higher and higher. If you just, I don't care attitude, you're probably not going to get along. We're going to discuss things, challenging talks when we can talk, okay, it feels like you don't meet some of the values, like how can we get it better, right? And that's not always pleasant for some of the people, but the people who really embrace our style, they stay around and they're really happy for working here, because there's not many companies that actually do that. A lot of companies would be like the corporation style, when you need to be knowing soft skills, how to get by, and we don't really care about that. We really care what do you bring to the table. So the thing is, we've built a lot of models around that, how to support those progression of careers. So for example, we have, if you join Cobiro and you want to learn, that's the most important thing, then we're going to facilitate that. And then we're going to have, one-to-one talks with you. We're going to have career planning meetings once a month at least. Then we're going to have something called Skill Grid. Skill Grid is an Excel spreadsheet in which we divide your technical abilities into different columns and then different skill levels. And that way we have a discussion with you, let's say at least once every 3 months, when we're going to say, okay, looking at your pull requests, we can tell like you're really good at that, you're not so good at those things. What do you want to develop, right? And then we're going to facilitate that. We're going to facilitate maybe switching the teams if you wish, or maybe that's going to be fitting better your goals in the future. So there is a lot of movement in between the teams. Also, we have different products coming up. So then you can try new things. You can try some flagship stuff. So we try to adjust to what you want, right? And then just keeping people happy is really meeting their expectations and their goals, right? So if I want to become senior in about a couple of years, we need to facilitate that, chop that goal into smaller goals and then take it one day at a time, right? Get a little bit better. And then, we're going to have your part, we're going to have our company view on this, and then we're going to meet somewhere in the middle and improve. So if you're here for the right reasons, where you want to actually develop and work with, cool stuff, we're going to facilitate that for you. And then create a measurable small goals along the way where you can actually achieve them. And then, it's pretty common people get actually raised twice a year in Cobiro. If they really progress and get better, every 6 months is quite common to get a raise. It doesn't mean you'll definitely get it every 6 months. It means you have to work for it to actually do it. But if you do, it's no problem.
That's really good. That's really good for people. Small steps is always perfect. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as I could understand, it is possible to work with you remotely also.
Yeah, we have a lot of people working from different parts of Poland as well. So yeah, absolutely no problem.
Perfect. What technology do you use and why is it Angular?
Yeah. So Angular is because I love the framework. I mean, it's been there since I came. So it was also a big part of why I joined Cobiro, right? But generally, so the technology stack we use NX for monorepo. We have about 300,000 lines of code in there. So it's quite big. Then we have our own homegrown. We have really two monorepos. One is the open source that we're just going to move our open source packages there, called Handyman. And then the other one is our corporate Insight monorepo, which is private. And then we're gonna have, we have Jest, we have ESLint, we have Pact for testing, we have PHP on the backend, but also Nest.js. We experimented with one hackathon for Nest.js, and now we're going to move more towards building some new stuff in Nest.js, but of course also maintain our PHP infrastructure. We also have some Node.js on Lambda. We use AWS, but we also have some Google Cloud Platform on the side. So there's on the DevOps side, we use a lot of cool stuff like Kubernetes, Helm, Dockers, and whatnot. But on the front end, it's mainly our own homegrown Angular packages and Angular 13. So we always keep it updated. As soon as it's stable and everything is fine, we'll just update it. So Angular is because I believe it's the best framework.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love this framework too. If we talk about PHP, what kind of framework you use with PHP?
Yeah, so actually it's very funny because in both cases, even though we use Angular and okay, so to answer your question, we use Laravel and Symfony. But it's not really 100% true. It's because we follow this clean architecture approach in which you would treat a framework as just an adapter to get in your code running. So we don't marry a framework. If you look at our in our Angular code, or if you look in our PHP code, you will see TypeScript and PHP. All our domain logic is pure TypeScript. All our command handlers and application logic is also pure TypeScript with some RxJS on top of it. Only in the components and resolvers and pipes, that's where you're gonna see it. But then technically it's easy to just switch frameworks for us because all our business logic and connection and so on is done in pure TypeScript. So it's just facilitated that way. We use framework to achieve our goals, but we don't think in frameworks when we code.
Okay, I understand. So the biggest Angular challenges you've come across?
That can be answered in so many levels because
we have time.
Okay, cool. So I think let's talk about biggest challenge in Angular in general. What I found is reactivity. I believe for people to learn solid, reactive programming approach is hard, and I agree, it's hard. It took me years to learn. So I would say this is the biggest challenge. Learning about the subscription, learning about unsubscribing, learning about those things. Then as long as you go further, you will learn that the difference between smart and presentational components is maybe not what you think.
Yeah.
A lot of time people will use a presentational component to really cut a piece of HTML and then just put it and keep it reusable. But the problem with that approach is your components are really tight coupled to your smart components. So then you will have to go ahead and copy all your services, all your subscriptions. And you see, really, it's not really reusable. Just because you have input and output, it doesn't mean you really embrace the presentation components. Actually, we have one rule: don't write your presentational components if you don't have to. And I can prove to many, many people that actually there are at least 6 steps before you really need to write your presentational components. Like there is even Angular material. I mean, we use that extensively, right? Why would we need to build our own? And there is CSS classes. I mean, don't create components like buttons, right? I mean, you could build directive. There is a button already in HTML. Obviously, there are some cases where you really want to do it because, I don't know, some templating and stuff. But that's, as I say, like start with classes, go to directives, then go to already existing components in Angular material. Well, if that doesn't exist, okay, consider a presentational component. And really ask yourself a question: is it really presentational component you're building, or is it smart component that has to be reused? So, and there is also like page component. So we created the whole science behind Angular, which is not really taught anywhere. So it sounds mysterious, but it's really exciting because we have a lot of answers. When someone comes in and join our company, they start to feel like, wow, there is another world, really, like, like Event Bus, right? most people don't even know it. Like, we used to be silly and ask those questions on our interview process, and we realized, okay, no one knows about it, so don't ask it, right? Don't ask questions you don't like the answer. So so we started to actually, go around and switch our focus from not expecting to know those things, but actually teach people in the most efficient way to use it efficiently as soon as possible. So we move towards that instead. So yeah, because we have a lot of stuff like, I don't know, feature flags. How many people do feature flags these days? Not many, to my knowledge. And services and states and command buses, and there is a lot of things really going on. And most of the people just think Angular, like a framework, resolver, service, and component, and maybe NGRX and NGXS, which are great tools, no doubt about that. But there is more to it, actually.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, you are relatively new on a Polish scene. Tell us your story.
Okay, so it feels I'm new because so I'm Polish, grew up, and I was raised in Poland. But after finishing my study, I moved around. I started to live in other countries where I started to learn more about the programming, and I finished my university in Copenhagen. And then I lived there for 13 years, and then I moved back to Poland. So that's why I'm sort of new. And I've never really I never really thought that, I don't know, start my YouTube channel or start my Twitter account. I was just focusing on myself, sort of selfish approach, and then learn as much as I can. And then eventually people started to tell me Greg, I mean, the stuff you tell, no one tells. And I was like, nah, it's not possible. I started to Google, and it was not a common knowledge, actually. And, I grew my career to CTO through architects roles and startup CTOs and whatnot. And so I always took it the hard way, always got myself on the deep waters, right? And then learned from that. And after many years of doing that, I felt like I should contribute to it. So I started my YouTube channel. I started to do some meetups, and then it naturally attracted some of the people. My content, by the way, is not really for new guys, because I believe there is a big gap. So there is a lot of code tutorials that are how to get started or building a to-do app. But not many people talk about the advanced topics of architecture, design patterns, and a lot of. And I'm also full stack, by the way. I'm doing backend and frontend. So I've took a lot of inspiration from the backend code, because these days, your browser is really like a server. It really can run so many things. I mean, and people forget that. People only think, I don't know, maybe PWA or something, but there's so much more. You have IndexedDB in your browser, you have WebSockets, you have Firebase. Hey, you have Firebase. Why do you need the backend, right?
Exactly.
Just connect
you
to
have
Firebase.
Everything.
Exactly, so many things. So I think it shifts, and it saves a lot of money on infrastructure as well. When you're in a startup mode, when computing is a scarce resource, you really start to become creative about those things as well. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is beauty of this.
Yeah, I mean, Angular is so awesome. It's really a framework that gives you all.
Yeah, exactly. So people complain about hiring talent in Poland, and especially in Warsaw. Mm-hmm. How come you attract to so many people in such a short time? And you have a lot of biggest and more known companies around here. Mm-hmm. So how you do that?
Yeah. So I would say one of the most important thing is that so it's sort of like a selling technique, right? It's like you want them to come to you. You don't want to go to them in a way. You want to facilitate that they first know about you through employer branding. So technically, organizing meetups is important thing. Having a YouTube channel, Some companies have blogs. So that's cool. That's really good, because make yourself known. And by the way, I've been a speaker last year on NG Poland. That helped a lot. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you so much.
It's been incredible. Actually, some of people who work here, they saw me on NG Poland. So, step number 1, make something interesting. Step number 2, share it with the world. Step number 3, get people invited to join your journey, right? I believe that's how it goes. And if you sure, you can be a big company, but work on bad projects. I mean, you can work on projects that are not exciting. Yeah. You don't have a good tech. You don't have good people who can also help you grow other people. To
grow, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So people first, technology follows, and then make something interesting and be passionate about what you do, I'm so passionate about building stuff in Angular and Nest.js as well. So, and PHP, of course. But, in general, be like, when I talk to people and I tell them my story, this is my life, this is my goal, right? This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do everything to achieve it. Whether I achieve it or not, doesn't matter, because the way is the goal, not the end goal. So, if you enjoy what you're doing and get it, take it one day at a time and achieve your small goals and push things forward. If by the end of the day you go to sleep, you close your eyes and you answer one question: am I better than yesterday? If yes, everything is great. If not, something to change.
Yeah, totally true. That's true. Do you do open source?
Yeah, we do open source. We started to do it, actually. It's part because, we had a couple of people working on our internal tooling. And then we were like, okay, why don't we tell other people around about it? Then we started to tell about it, and people were like, oh, that's cool. And, you can tell you're really advanced when people start not to understand what you're talking about. It's pretty funny. So generally, obviously, I didn't do a good enough job to explain it. But in general, I would say, just make something really cool and then share it with the world, because it's not part of our domain logic, it's not part of our business, it's just some sort of an infrastructure. We do event-driven architecture. By the way, I just spoke with a guy from NGXS, and I think we're going to port it to NGXS as well in lab, so fingers crossed for that project.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
And then we also do feature flags. So, this is quite a problem in many companies and everywhere I worked before, because, when bug happens in Cobiro, we can release it within minutes. We don't have, it just takes 10 minutes for CI to run and test all our stuff. Obviously, it also depends with acceptance testing and end-to-end testing and so on. We get that. So sometimes it might be a little bit longer, but the hotfix can really ship within a minute. And that's really cool. And we wouldn't be able to do it without continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and feature flags. So if you go to Cobiro and you open up our app, you will actually you will download a lot more than you can see. But then our product owners can toggle on and off some flags in the UI, and then you will suddenly start seeing more functionalities. So we open source that. You can download it. Then we also have...
How can I find it?
Oh, yeah. You just go to our GitHub, Cobiro.
Okay.
And then you'll find it there. We started a new project called Handyman, and we're going to port more and more in there. But if you want to find already working things, you can go to our NPM at Cobiro, and you're going to have a lot of public packages there as well.
Yeah, perfect. So if we talk about tests, can you explain how you do that?
Yeah, I love this. I think this is one of my favorite topics. So generally, we really take tests seriously. It's one of the most important thing of being good developer, in my opinion. Like, I really think being a senior developer, you really gotta understand testing. And there are so many layers of what you can do with tests. So we follow the pyramid of testing. So we have a unit test as the most base. The most amount of testing code is in unit tests. Then we have some integration tests and acceptance tests. These are our state logic, and as well as integration with our backend. We use Pact. So we use something called contract-driven testing, which means when you code, and we have a cross-functional teams where we have backend and frontend together. And then we make a pair for the feature. And then a frontender will write a integration test of the service, Angular service, like HTTP, for example. We will write the test first, and then that will get published to the Pact broker. And then the backend can fetch it and verify. So we start with a failing test in between the connection. And if backend change anything, you will actually end up with a broken contract. And that way they cannot really merge that code. They would need to create a new version of the endpoint. So we don't really have those regression in between the front end and the back end. That's pretty cool. And it gives you all this nice graph of connection, what services and front ends talk to each other. Then we also have end-to-end test. We started with Cypress, but we moved away from it. It's because we use Datadog for our monitoring services, and it already ships with synthetic tests. It's really a no-code like for end-to-end testing. So even a product owner can set up some basic rules and have it running. So it facilitated. We didn't have to write all that code. It's funny. We wrote it, then we didn't want to maintain it, and then we found, there is a tool already doing that, so we moved to it. And then we also have test-driven development approach. So you would write the test first, then you would fail, then you would write the code, you would make it pass, and then you would refactor your code. So in general, we work in those small cycles, but it also means, your code needs to be testable. So we really care about, don't make too many dependencies in your classes, create all the test doubles, create your stubs, mocks, assemblers, whatever. So there's a lot of things you have to do to actually ship a feature, and about half of it is test. And it's very often, actually, people ask me, does it make sense? I mean, you half as slow. Well, I don't agree. Fundamentally, I don't agree. It's because if you write tests, you are slower on the beginning of the project. Yes, because you don't produce so much code. And, trust me, on the beginning, no matter what code you produce, it's going to work and it's going to look nice. Now, there is this moment about maybe a month or two down the road where things start getting shaky and you're really cognitively not able to understand it all yourself. You start making a lot of mistakes because you didn't have tests to actually, stop you from writing bad code. So you actually start, rot your code inside. And then eventually it's just bug fixing. And that's the moment people want to quit your company because they just don't like it, right? So invest in your tests from the beginning. It doesn't, because, in the other way, if you don't write tests, you explode on the beginning with the features and then you slow down big time. If you write tests, TDD, from the beginning, you have the same angle of your progress, which means you're not slowing down the road. Obviously, there could be some major refactor, adding some extra abstraction layers in your code, but you write it a lot more efficiently. And if something happens, that's usually an edge case that you didn't think about. And there is this one specific place where you know where you need to go. You just need to add an extra regression test case, and then things will just work, So your bug fixing, your maintaining of the code base, your refactoring, everything is so much easier that without the test, it would be not possible. And that's how we actually roll.
Yeah, totally agree. So how do you develop a new feature?
Yeah. So obviously, let's talk about the sprint cycle, because there is a lot of planning going on before and like on a strategic level and so on. But let's say a team needs to develop something, so we would obviously have a planning session, and then it would be refined before and estimated, and we have a full scrum going on. And then when the coder knows what he needs to do, it's been planned, and he starts to work. The first thing, obviously, you want to write a failing acceptance test, like end-to-end test, for example. And then it's written in product understandable language, like given, when, then, and so on. And then it's a failing test. You go and write your layers of abstraction, maybe a component, maybe your state logic, maybe your services, maybe some local storage is involved, whatever it needs to be done. That you do on TDD basis. You connect the layers. You can actually split the tasks in between the team members, because you will have a big task which is cross-functional, end-to-end, and then you will have a social login, whatever, and that task will contain the backend and the front-end tasks. Like we count as task as done if it's actually can be used by the user, right? So if the user can go in and click that Facebook button, for example, he will get logged in and use our system. That's when the task is done. So obviously sometimes it's too big of a work, then we have to chop it down in smaller pieces with some limited functionality and so on. But in general, then the front end and the back end will agree on a contract. They will also have some end-to-end test that's failing, and then they will go its separate ways and build it. They do the TDD cycles on each side, and then they meet in the middle. And then by the end of the sprint, which is 1 week long, for example, in our case, they will have a working feature. Well, sometimes not, then it's okay, it just goes to the next sprint. But in general, idea is that they would complete that work, and then meet in the middle, and that will just work. Because you had contracts, you had end-to-end tests, and we actually don't have QA. We don't have a manual guys who actually click around. I mean, obviously, product owners test their product all the time and have some usability testing and so on. But we don't have like a manual guy who clicks buttons and checks if things are working. We have it all automated. So yeah, idea is to complete the work in small chunks with full code coverage. Yeah.
So can you compare the backend, the PHP backend and the Nest.js backend? Which one is better for which feature?
So there is a lot of there are some political situations as well. Like maybe you have like a legacy code already written in PHP, then you don't have much choice, right? But in general, if you create a brand new feature, brand new service, I would. I might regret that, so I don't say it because everyone is listening. But
I'm just asking because it's interesting. You said you use both, so maybe it's some reason. If it is a legacy code, question at all. Yeah.
Yeah, but it really depends on the person because you choose. You as a team member, you decide. And we have, so a lot of people, so how would this whole Nest situation happen? Is because a lot of people in our company who are really great front-end developers, they said, I would like to do some backend as well. And maybe they already worked with backend. Maybe we have some people, I don't know, trying Kotlin and different Java or whatever. And they would like to actually do end-to-end tasks because, our DNA is end-to-end tasks. So now we have one guy doing both, and that's very interesting for some of them. And we were like, okay, what framework? And then we obviously liked Nest.js the most. And then people were like, let me do it. Let me learn about it. So if I have a guy who's really keen on using Nest.js, he can choose and go with Nest.js. It's really on a person. I personally wouldn't influence that. If I have a good backend developer who's used to PHP, he will go ahead and do it in PHP. Okay. But PHP 8 is actually pretty fascinating as well. it looks a lot like TypeScript now, like with a lot of features. So don't think, a lot of people think PHP like 5 or 4.
No. I really like PHP, by the way.
Yeah.
I am a C# developer, but I really like PHP, especially the latest version. It's really great. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So I think so. Nest.js is a lot less mature in our company. In PHP, we have a lot of libraries and a lot of stuff. So naturally, that would be a first choice for a lot of people in our company. But if you want to experiment and maybe build something easier, then just go with Nest.js. But by the way, engineering and architecture stays the same. Like those standards don't change. We use hexagonal architecture, for example. And then you obviously it depends on the case. Sometimes you want to build CRUD applications, just have MVC approach, sort of like with JSON being your view model. Then that's fine too. If we really want to be like sort of like a chameleon, where you're not forcing people on very advanced architectures if they don't have to. If the problem is easy, we rather have it done easy and then upgrade it along the way. One of our values is iterative perfection. So we don't strive for perfection from the first day. We actually want to get it better. The only answer is it better today or tomorrow? Is it going to be better if I do it? And then eventually you get there. Time is irrelevant, really, because it's what you deliver for the end users and yeah, but I sort of dived away from a question. I would say it depends.
Okay. That's the better answer I can hear. Okay. How about junior and mid-level developers? Do they exist in Cobiro?
They do, actually.
Okay.
They are one of my favorite developers, actually. The reason why is because I see them grow. And they are full of passion. I really love working with less experienced developers, even though there is a huge gap in knowledge and so on. And I have to be really careful not to, go sideways with my explanations, right? Just give enough of information so the head doesn't explode. But in general, I would say they are the best. I mean, they are like, the first in the office, and they are the first ones asking, what do I do now, and so on. So they are really cool. And actually, a funny tip is, it's with this level of passion for coding, you achieve greater results faster. And very fast, you can actually become really good if you have the right coaching and mentoring. Which we do. But in general, I would say a lot of senior developers, they might be a little bit like complacent and I already know it all. And that's not a good type. We don't have many of these guys in Cobiro, of course. But in general, when they come on the interview and so on, you can really tell like, lack of humbleness and so on. I really think a lot of seniors can learn passion from younger friends. I would say so. They are really good about it. Yeah.
Okay, so how often do you release? What is your release cycle?
Multiple times a day. So just we don't even count it. We don't do semantic versioning or anything like that. We just release it whenever the feature is ready, and it's ready within a day, for example. So we don't do big bang releases. You don't wait for weeks. Funny thing, we had some serious bug because some external API just changed. And then we realized, oops, we are in trouble. It was a missing header. But in general, we could release it 2 minutes later. So it's just, and I was like sitting with the rest of the team and I was like, thank God. We actually have got to this deployment, right, guys? I mean, imagine now that the users wouldn't be able to log in for days or for 2 weeks. It's horrible. Yeah. So we release many times a day. It's not a big event. It's just, it's switching a toggle in the UI, really.
Okay, that's great. So what is quality assurance to you?
Yeah, great question. So to me, quality assurance is not a person, it's a whole team effort. And quality assurance obviously means you want to assure quality, which means so many things. It means you're serious about writing tests, automatic tests, you're serious about reporting bugs, you're serious about, going extra mile with edge cases. It's also, you really wanna be proud of your work. I believe that's it. If you really think that what you're building is to make you proud, you will have a high quality assurance, and you don't need a person to do it and to check it for you. Because think about it. I mean, if you think you're a public person or you're something, you will make sure you shave when you go on the street, and you tidy up yourself. Obviously you do, because you have high standards to yourself. And it's the same with code. If you have a high standards to what you do, and your goal is to actually make yourself feel good about what you do, you're 100% confident that what you do is the right thing. And if you don't, you ask, you proactively seek for answers, you're a curious person, you will find those answers. Obviously, not always you're gonna, be 100% right. Obviously, no one is. But, it's an attitude. I believe it's an attitude. It's not a role. It's not a person. It's everyone working in this symbiotic vision.
Yeah, exactly. I have a last technical question. How do you deal with the legacy code?
Actually, maybe unpopular opinion, but legacy code is the best. The reason why it's the best is because it does so many things to you. One is you start seeing how well did you improve. That's a good thing. So, you want to look at your code from last couple of months and want to say, who wrote that code? It's such a horrible code, right? Then you say, oh, I made a great improvement. So it's pretty good. So it makes you feel like you actually, something. So it's a good thing. The second thing is it opens a new business opportunities, because the people who wrote that code in that snapshot of a time, they knew only what they could know. So they did the best job they could, but the business changed. The user needs changed. Now, when you actually touch that code, you have a great opportunity to make sure you deliver a better quality for your users. And that's awesome. And obviously, how do you deal with it? Well, the very first thing you really want to have is testing. Make sure that if you change anything, it's not gonna break, right? It's not gonna blow on you in the midst of nowhere. So generally, make sure that you have your business rules written down in a test case. That's the most important thing. And then start playing around with it. Then, draw a diagram, say where I want to be at the end, then assess that work and say, well, that's months of work. So chop it down into smaller pieces and say, okay, so I will do only this. And it's pretty funny because sometimes you talk to your people and say, why did you do those things in a pull request, right? Well, I did it because it facilitated me to go there later. And then people actually get it, and it's pretty exciting. It's an iterative process of getting it slightly better. But sometimes business could have changed so much that you can actually treat it as a greenfield. So you just build it from the zero up, and then just switch routing, for example. So we also do that. So we have sort of two approaches. If it's fixable, fix it in a small iterations, delivering the values. And then if it's not really fixable because it changed drastically, just write it from scratch. And with the proper, testing and so on. And another really good thing about writing with the legacy code, one of our employees told me that once, and I was like stunned. I didn't know it before. When you work with legacy, everyone is so scared about working with legacy. No one will count your time working on it because no one wants to take it. So if you actually use that opportunity to create something great, you can get some extra time to build it better. So it's pretty fun, but it's another level of challenge, you know. It's not as easy as writing the same thing from scratch and you know, get it. Greenfield is nice on the beginning, but then eventually it's boring. But legacy is not. Legacy has some, you know, hidden gems right there. You know, you never know what's gonna pop up. So it's pretty fun, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. So, Greg, what kind of person is Greg, and how do you see yourself?
Okay, what
This
kind
is
of
my
person?
favorite question.
Yeah, I can tell. So I don't know, what kind of person am I? I believe it's another person who should tell me what kind of person is Greg.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you know, we should ask other people. I can only tell what other people tell.
yeah.
Maybe.
Let's do it.
A lot of people will say I'm very straight for sure.
Okay.
I'm sort of like this person who's very straight to the point, you know, and it can be good, it can be not, it can be awesome. It depends. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm okay. I'm indifferent to it. It's just how I am, I believe. So in general, I'm very straight to the point, and I'm very. I'm also having a very high standards to what I do, and what I expect from others as well. So I do expect a lot from other people. Sometimes they have to tell me like, slow down, you know, we're not you, Greg, so it's okay. But I also think that I'm also very empowering. I'm trying to get the best out of everyone as much as I can, and as much as they allow me to, as much as they can actually handle at the given time. So I think you know, if you're really like honest, I'm very honest as well. Sometimes to the pain. So and I'm also taking feedback very nicely. Like you know, I wouldn't get offended if someone tells me, you know, you're such and such. I would just be more curious. Why did you say that? And maybe there is something I should learn from it. So I would say pretty normal sort of. I don't know. To me, it's very normal. So hard to say, but I would say pretty straightforward to the point. It doesn't sound in my talks now because you got me off guard. But when it comes to architecture and you know technical stuff, I'm quite nerdy as well. You know, I'm introverted. So
that's amazing. So regarding this what you said, do you have some hints for us about self-organization?
Yeah. You can start doing the 5 whys technique, in which start with why, right? So why do you do those things, and why, and then ask yourself 5 times why.
Okay.
So I want to be the best programmer I can be. Why? And then because it makes me feel good and it makes me feel worthy or whatever, you know. Then you say why, and you repeat that, and you get to the core of a problem. Sorry, not problem really. Core to the core of it, you know, essence of who you are, and then start optimizing your life around it. So I really believe you should think about what you're doing as a journey, as you know, you're here on this world to impact, you know, some other people. Don't think only about yourself, but generally try to impact other people, and then I believe it can happen naturally if you really do the right thing. But if not, then you should reflect back on whether what you do is organized, right? So one thing, you have to know your times of the day when you're actually, I don't know, productive. I'm the most productive in the morning. So my morning, I know, are very dedicated towards coding, because that's the most important thing I really want to do now, professionally.
Yeah.
And then you know, you can use tomato technique when you have 45 minutes of thinking and doing something, and then do the 5 to 15 minutes break, and so on, and repeat that, and make sure you don't get distracted. I believe people get distracted too much these days. So you know, turn off your phone, you know, get enough sleep, exercise, all those stuff you really know. But in general, I would say if you struggle still, get yourself a coach. because a coach is a person. Coach is sort of different than trainer. The difference is coach will not tell you what to do, will make you do what you already know. So that's a big difference, right? So get yourself a coach. I don't know, maybe a loved one could be your coach. Maybe someone at work, maybe someone more experienced, maybe someone less experienced. It doesn't mean it needs to be the performance coach from the internet. It can be someone you trust who can actually keep you accountable and with who you have a good candid, and then just try to document it. Today I spent enough of time on this. That didn't bring enough value. What can I change? Just, make sure you iterate and you find the I think it's called golden circle, right? Like the sweet spot of what you want to do and what you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's exactly. Do you have any favorite hobbies?
Yeah, it's programming.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I became CTO, I really got myself on a mission here. So I haven't had time for hobbies, but back in my previous life, I used to dance salsa, play basketball, and do all those stuff. These days, it's pretty difficult with the COVID restrictions and situation going on. But in general, I used to play computer games actually, quite extensively.
What kind of?
I played Quake and Unreal Tournament.
Okay.
I even went to Korea, WCG, representing Poland one time.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's been a pretty intense period of my life when I used to commit myself to to the goal of getting the best video player I could be. That was back in 2003. And looking back, I learned so many things about, how competition really is. I used to be, I'll be totally honest with you. I used to be this quite arrogant kid who was thinking he's the best, and it's great in the terms of pushing yourself forward, but it's not really great for your image, right? So generally I was pushing myself to be the best video game player. And then eventually I learned that, it's not about it. It's really about the Zen approach to it when you because, the problem with sportsmen, there are two problems. One, you don't get what you want, or you get what you want. And these are two problems. Trust me, you get there, it's still a problem. Your problems will not fade away just because you achieved something. So you actually want to enjoy what you're doing. That's the most important thing. If you really enjoy what you're doing, then nothing else really is important, because even if you succeed or not, you just keep going, you just keep doing this. And this is what I learned from this period of time when I actually started to compete on a high level.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what about your work-life balance?
Yeah, you mean work balance?
Yeah, work-life.
No, work-life, yes, of course. So family is the most important thing to me. So, my wife and my kids, I try to pay as much attention as I can to them. And then there is not much time left. Maybe when my kids get a little bit bigger, then I will actually start enjoying some hobbies outside and so on. But yeah, absolutely. I would say I try to do the work in the morning, agree with my wife on some schedule, when we have lunch, when we have dinners, and, keep that 100% dedicated to the family. And then obviously there is a time after work where I spend time with my kids as well, and play around and, do goofy, silly things with them as well. So I try to do that. And then as well as I really like dancing and still play a little bit of games, not too much, but a little bit. So
you will be a speaker at NG Poland this year or next year. We are the next NG Poland is in January 25. So what are you preparing for this edition?
Yeah, so I would like to continue with the IDA approach that we used to talk. So I've done, I feel like this talk has evolved quite extensively along the time. Actually, it started back in last year in Poland when I was talking about the CQRS, life after state. And then I started to talk about to micro frontends and back. And now I want to really bring it to another level and talk about the IDA and our approach to it and how to actually manage multiple. There will be a bit of a twist of NX as well. So generally, how to manage multiple modules/libraries and where to draw the line in between. So I'm going to be talking a lot about cohesion and coupling and how to make systems that scale.
Okay, amazing. I'm looking forward to see you on stage. Greg, thank you so much for this great discussion. You provide a lot of amazing information for us. So one more time, thank you so much and see you on NG Poland this year.
Thank you very much, Darek, for having me. Yeah, see you there.